Hello and welcome to this recap video for Season 2 of the AOR Pro Mazda Championship on iRacing. This will basically be a video done in kind of a podcast style format where me and some other guy to be introduced in a minute will take you through the highs and lows of the season to bring you up to speed with what went on, as we unfortunately were unable to keep up to date with the race coverage videos from around 4 onwards for various reasons. So instead we'll be having this little chat about the season to kind of show off the main moments that happened, and I'll obviously add some footage in the background to go along with the chat to make it a bit more interesting as a video as well. So I am of course Fisi and Kerry, aka Knut Martinsen, in these iRacing videos, and with me I have the man that is coordinating this particular championship, and who those of you who are familiar with my channel will probably know best from the co-op seasons and various racing we've been doing together on the F1 games. But in this context, I guess it's more appropriate to say that he is my teammate, well, kind of one of them, in the Pro Mazda League, and he's also the Season 1 champion of the league as well. It is, of course, Kerry Nolden, aka KPTK92.
Hello, Fisi. Thank you so much for having me. Welcome, everyone, to this recap. It's going to be a long one, I think, because it was quite a season, it has to be said. And obviously, as you've touched on very briefly there, it's a shame that we could only bring you the first 4 videos, races in their entirety, but we will try our best to try and cover the key points of the season.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, obviously Kraken was the man who was doing the videos, and I know very well the situation he ended up getting in of not being able to quite keep up with the videos, because obviously from the F1 highlights I have been doing in the past. I know it's a lot of work, and I don't blame him really for not being able to keep up, but we got something planned for Season 3 which we'll touch on later after we go through the races for Season 2. So I guess we should start at the beginning.
Yep.
That would make sense. So the jump from Season 1 to Season 2 obviously saw a bit of a shake-up in the driver lineup. Some people dropping out, some new people coming in. Standard stuff between seasons, really.
Yeah, as you'd expect there. The challenge as a coordinator was to get the core of Season 1 over to Season 2 again. I think we did achieve that. I think Season 1 was largely a success. And we had a lot of people interested in driving and interested in watching, and it was just way above expectations compared to where it was when I first put the idea in my head, all the way at the beginning of the end of 2014 it was when the championship came about. But yeah, we did lose a couple of guys. That's always inevitable. People can't commit, but largely we brought over a lot of the same people.
And another main change from Season 1, obviously, was a lot more teams being formed, which is something I found really cool, actually, because in Season 1, I think we only had like 4 or 5 active teams, like properly active, but even at the start of Season 2, it was almost like a full grid. I think we almost had like 15 teams right at the start.
Yeah, so we went from about 27, 28 independent drivers from Season 1, and we kind of went all the way from about 1 or 2 independents left overall.
Yeah, the whole independence championship just got scrapped altogether because everyone just decided to team up.
And that was a good thing, because it gave that element. The independence championship was very much a broken championship from the start. It has to be said.
I don't think too many people really thought about that too much, and certainly the team championship is a bit more prestigious, I suppose.
Yeah.
Obviously, the main change with the teams were, of course, that we went from allowing 3 drivers per team to allowing only 2. So, obviously, for the first season, Team AOR, we had, which obviously had both of us in it, plus Neil Lukens. We had to kind of split up a bit, because 3 drivers when there's only room for 2 doesn't really work. So instead we split up into 2 different teams. We signed a Phil Reed, and then you went with him in Team AOR Blue, as it turned out, and I went with Neil in Team AOR Red.
we went to maximise our chances though as a team. I think if we went with the strongest possible lineup rather than split the 2, we would have more chance of success. So
a little bit sad of not being your teammate anymore, but certainly you and Phil were the 2 out of us 4, the 2 who performed the best in Season 1, and so that's fair enough. So I guess we should just jump in with the races and kind of go through the main points from the races. 12 race season, of course, starting off in Interlagos, a place where Formula 1 seasons usually end, but we just YOLO'd it and just started there instead.
Yeah, one of the most popular driver circuits out there, not just in iRacing but across the world in any category. Interlagos, hugely famous. Obviously a shorter layout in the Formula 1 cars because they're going so much faster, of course. Star Mazda, about 1 minute 35 lap, which isn't too bad still. That's pretty respectable. So the key point going into that season was based on the pre-season event, which was just a complete jumble of results. Who really was going to make their mark on the championship, really?
Yeah, and kind of a surprise in qualifying. Well, not a surprise, I suppose, because we all know that when he joined, he was a strong contender. But Justin Brunner took pole position in his first race then at Interlagos, so quite impressive. And you once again start on the front row as you had done all of season 1, I believe. So you qualified second ahead of your new teammate Phil Reed, and then you had Patrick White up there as well. It certainly turned into a very action-packed race, that one. Obviously, the video for it will prove that. And you did take the lead from Brunner quite early on, didn't you?
Yeah, it was lap 2. I think the focus for me was just to attack straight away. So, with the field so close, I think we had the top 8 covered by half a second, and then we had like the top 23 covered by a second. So, it was pretty astonishing figures, really. And we had, it was just attack and try and get that space. Obviously, I had my wingman in Phil, who actually probably wasn't a wingman at that stage, but. The plan was just to attack. I think every driver was going at it, and I think as the race kind of progressed in the opening laps, it was quite clear that the top 5 started to break away. And speaking of your wingman, Phil, he did also pass Brunner actually on lap 7. I've got on my notes here, I actually did some notes, to make the AOR Blue 1-2 after 7 laps. But then, it didn't quite go to plan on lap 11, did it? I think Phil, he put the pressure on. Certainly put the pressure on me. It was looking like a good position, but obviously he had to defend his position from the cars behind. There were still 3 cars still jostling behind, so he had to really get a move on, and he really had no choice but to try and make the overtake, which I understand. I went for it and defended and went about it in my normal way, and I let him through into turn 1. I thought.
Okay, so you let him through. He didn't pass you. You let him through, did you?
Oh well, I mean in terms of track position. So he took the inside for. No, he took the outside for 1. Sorry, and he had the inside for 2. So I thought there's no point trying to hang it there because it would just squeeze me on the grass and we'll end up worse off. So tried to get the better exit onto the straight. Got right up underneath him and thought I'll try and go one way to the right, thinking that I wasn't really alongside, and I thought I'd do a quick switch to the left as the pit lane opened up on exit, and it didn't really work out that way.
Did it?
My nose was just enough to touch his rear, the rear of his car, which kind of sent him off the circuit a little bit. He kept it flat out, by the way. I'm just going to defend myself there, and then he came obviously across. And
he absolutely spun back onto the track, and straight in front of the whole pack, pretty much. And I think he just slightly touched Brunner as well as he made his way past. It was just a funny situation, really.
Well, it was certainly a defining moment of the season, I think. A lot of drivers remember that incident, not even those who are in the top 5. It was, it's those kind of images that we want as a championship to create, but not in Team AOR. We don't want stuff like that happening. So it wasn't my best moment. It wasn't the team's best moment either.
Yeah, so after that, you dropped to 4th, I believe, and Phil obviously dropped a bit further back. So then it was suddenly a 3-way fight for the lead, with you kind of hanging back there somewhere. So it was then Patrick White, Jamie Fluke, and Justin Brunner battling it out for the lead, which lasted for pretty much the whole race, to be honest. And it came down to the final 2 laps when I think... well, I can't remember which one out of Fluke and White was leading, to be honest, because they were changing position. But I do think that Fluke was leading going into the final lap, but then White passed him with a great move midway through the lap to take the win. And White's first win, obviously, he was there for the whole season 1, but he didn't win a race until this first race of season 2.
He came so close at Road America, of course, Patrick White. So fully deserving winner, I think, in round 1. He really, he had the pace. I think any one of those 3 could have won it though. But it was great that Patrick won. I think, considering the time he's already spent in the league already. So of
certainly
course, Brunner.
The 2 other guys, obviously debutants in that race.
Of course, Yeah, so hugely impressive showing from those two as well. I know Fluke went well in pre-season, and Brunner, of course, we know, a formidable driver in his own right without even being a part of the league in the first place. So, yeah, that was it then. We had White, Fluke, Brunner, your podium. I managed to. I actually caught up towards the end. I was only 1.6 off the lead in the end. Phil Reed fighting with Vandenbroek for a large part of that race, despite having a huge straight line speed deficit after that collision. But yeah, I mean, it was great. It was just a great race. I think everyone commented afterwards on what a great drive White had, and what just action packed. It was just action all the way through.
I think it's fair to say a good start to the season in terms of action anyway.
Absolutely.
Not so much for me though, as I only lasted one corner. I think I was pretty much the first DNF in that race after a crash at turn 1. I don't think I need to go into detail because you're probably watching it on the screen right now. So, and the only other moment actually I remember is Mittner's wheel freezing when he absolutely wiped out Chantal going into turn 1.
I don't think
that was a pretty funny moment.
Yeah, I don't think he won spectacular crash of that race.
Yeah. Yeah, so on to the race 2 then, I guess. At the Barber Motorsports Park, which is a place which I had never driven personally myself before that race, which is why I was quite surprised that I managed to take 5th place in qualifying.
I think the AOR cars went pretty strong there. I was 3rd, only 500s off eventual pole position. We had Phil Reed in 4th, so a 3-4-5 for both Team AOR cars was a pretty good showing.
But even though you said it was a good showing, it was also the first time, after 12 races, your first time you didn't qualify on the front row.
I know, I was only 500ths off, so that just goes to show how close it was. Of course, pole position taken by another debutant, Mark Jarvis, who is part of Carbon Racing, but not at this stage. He ran as a privateer while Carbon Racing ran Patrick White and Gregor Reineck Jr. at the time. But it was a great showing from Mark, who emerged as one of the lead Star Mazda drivers as well last season out as well. So he took pole by it was only 200ths as well to Brunner, and I was only 300ths behind Brunner, so it was a pretty
really
close qualifying.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it kind of turned into you and Brunner and Jarvis, didn't it, in terms of the battle for the lead? Because Phil, poor Phil, got taken out halfway through the first lap by Andreas Merck, who messed up his braking for the extremely difficult downhill, like triple apex corner, which is just a nightmare. So he got taken out on the spot pretty much. Unfortunate for him, but you carried on battling those two guys up front, and I think you passed Brunner on lap 2 with a pretty spicy move, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think Brunner got a bit wide on the exit of 1. Obviously, he didn't set himself up nicely for 2. So I just lined myself up nicely out of the exit for 2 onto the straight, and then just made a move. To be honest, there wasn't much. Yeah. There wasn't many places to overtake for anyone really. So I thought I had to take.
That's why it's a spice move really, because it's a really hard track to overtake on, and you just went for it really early on. So well played, I suppose. That wasn't it in terms of that battle, because obviously lap 10 I've got noted down here is when Jarvis had his little slide towards the end of the lap, and I know why you're breathing like that now, because you were so close to being taken out of that.
I think when we actually looked at the incident afterwards, me and Jarvis, we were counting our lucky stars really, because my front wing actually went inside his car. I don't know how it happened. I usually come worse off. I usually, get net coded somewhere, but when I'm nowhere near a car. But I was definitely luck was on my side that time. So I managed to get to lead a lap. So that was good.
Yeah, short-lived, of course. A couple of laps later. Well, actually, before that, I think Jarvis actually had another error, which meant Brunner got through on him up to 2nd, and then lap 12 is when you decided to do a bit of sliding of your own.
Yeah, not great really. It's such a tricky series of corners at the end, so I think I just got my braking slightly crossed up. Maybe had the back marker in front of me. My eye line was kind of focused on him rather than the circuit. So yeah, I will blame it on the back marker. So, and then I went off. Obviously tried to rejoin and unfortunately made contact with Brunner. I think. It's just one of them things really, it just happened, so that was me out of the race, but it allowed Brunner obviously to lead the race as well, so we had 3 different leaders pretty early on, really, in the early stages of the race.
Yeah. In terms of the remaining battle lead, I think Brennan and Jarvis were quite close together, but I don't think there were too much battling going on, really. I think Brennan was leading, Jarvis was kind of just sitting back, not being able to pass. Until Brenner made a mistake at turn 1, I believe lap 32 is when it happened. He made a mistake, got kind of sideways through the first corner, ended up on the grass, just riding over the bumps on the grass, and not very easy to go fast when you do that. So that's how Jarvis finally got through into the lead, putting a statement in there and won on his debut race. Yep. I mean, Brenner obviously took pole in his debut race, but Jarvis went one better with a pole and a win. So those are looking good at the start of the season. And in terms of other stuff in that race, well, I guess you can mention me getting on the podium somehow. That's somehow, yeah. That's kind of my highlight of the season quite early on, and surprisingly at a track that I had never driven before. I ended up really enjoying Barber, actually, even though I was very nervous through some of the corners. I guess I got a bit lucky as well, obviously. Your DNF and Phil getting crashed out, and Oliver Connor's engine blowing up in my face at one point. Kind of gifted me some positions. I don't think I actually made any proper overtakes in the race at all. But once I got into third, I did manage to hold off the pressure from the guys who were chasing me. I think Robinson, Morris and Mittner were chasing me for a long time. And got within a few seconds at the end. And it was quite nervous towards the end because I was in the middle of a group of backmarkers. But I managed to hold on. So a positive moment for me after my DNF in the first race after one corner.
I think the disappointing aspect of that race was probably carbon racing, has to be said. I think after the win that Patrick White had, obviously in Interlagos, retired in an incident that was more or less the same place with Gregor Reineck.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same incident. And then they both just got taken out of the same corner in the same lap.
Yeah, it was just unfortunate. So I think that incident was Reineck Jr.'s final straw anyway, and I think that.
Was it after that race that he decided to drop out?
Yeah, I do believe that was his last race, unfortunately.
That's a shame. Yeah, because he had been a reliable driver for the first season, definitely. And I guess it's worth mentioning at this point with all these DNFs that obviously have. The drop week count was increased to 2 for this season, as opposed to the 1 you had in season 1. So slightly more leeway for people DNFing. But obviously, if people DNF more than 2 times, then they're in trouble.
Yeah.
So then, race 3 at Circuit of the Americas. Not the full layout, the kind of
the
west layout, which kind of cuts off in the middle of the S's, goes back onto the main straight, or the back straight, I should say. And so actually, Phil got his first pole. Having been there for the whole season 1, this was actually his first pole.
I think he was threatening the pace early on in season 2. Actually, I think towards the end of season 1, obviously he was one of the top independent drivers.
Yeah.
Went to Team AOR, and Interlagos he wasn't far off pole. He was up there in Barber before he was, tragically taken out. And I think it was a long time coming, really. I think he really underlined his pace, really, and kind of established himself in qualifying at COTA, beating Brunner by 0.004 of a second. So it was the tiniest margin. He looked so good in practice as well. Before the session even got underway in practice, he looked so good. But another thing that was highlighted in practice was the fuel loads, and I think
the controversy with the fuel load.
It was the rules are bent so that you have to take a pit stop because fuel was going to run out. But with COTA, the time of the race wasn't going to be as long as normal, so that meant that the fuel consumption wasn't really taken into account, so people could actually get away with pit stops and not fueling. Wasn't changed in the regulations because it's never happened before, so we went into COTA obviously knowing that we could theoretically get away with no fuel.
It would be close anyway.
The regulations do state though that you must take a pit stop for fuel. Yeah,
and that certainly proved to be a key point as the race went on. And a key point in terms of deciding the winner, as we'll get to in a bit. But first, I guess we could just go through the first lap, which again wasn't that kind to the two of us. It's I guess we could go through your incident first, because you decided to do some flying
So we got a bad start. Down in 7th, half a second off pole. So if that wasn't, you know, something to worry about already, had contact with Mittner at turn 1, which was bad enough already. Got away with it. Then went into the chicane. We were kind of side by side. I was unsure what he was doing. Then he backed off, so that meant I had the road. And then I didn't really focus on my lines properly, so I was hitting them curbs quite hard. And I think through the second part of the twisty bits, I hit one of the curbs pretty hard.
Damn sausage curbs.
And got launched into the air, landed, and then kind of got fired back onto the racing line. Tried my best. There was nothing else I could do as a passenger. Yeah. So luckily, I only took one car out, and it was unfortunately poor Michael Mittner.
Yeah, poor Michael Mittner. Basically, first you hit the curb, decided to do a little flying lesson, then you spun back on the track, got hit by Mittner. It was like a massive flying lesson, because you absolutely went flipping up. Jesus, to give you 10 for style at least. It was pretty impressive.
Thanks.
And this damn sausage curbs kind of screwed me over as well, because your kind of battle with Mittner going into the S's kind of slowed the field up behind you as well, and I kind of got caught out by that because people were just slowing down an excessive amount, I thought anyway. I ended up tapping the back of Chogi, aka Alexander Trowbridge, and that actually didn't give us any damage, but we went spinning, and both of us ended up spinning like onto one of the sausage curbs, and that gave us both damage. Yeah, we both had to do a lengthy pit stop for repairs, and that kind of ruined my race.
So, 2 cars out already.
2 AOR cars out already, and not ideal for a first lap. But at least Phil was still flying the flag for our team, and because he was leading for quite a while. Because I think actually Brunner, who qualified second, he dropped back down the field for a bit. He was down in 5th, I believe, at some point, kind of just battling with some people, and then worked his way back up to 2nd eventually to chase after Phil.
All this has given Phil a great chance to just break away and kind of control the race from his point of view. There wasn't too many overtaking places, but Brunner was coming at him pretty quick.
He was. Brunner showing that he definitely had really strong pace throughout the race. Even though Phil took pole, Brunner was kind of the pace hitter in the race, and he caught back up to him just before the pit stops, I believe. And then that's obviously when the controversy happened, when the race was decided. Because they pitted at the same time, it was both parking at the same time pretty much in their pit box, but Brunner then just decided, I guess, to drive off immediately back out of the pits without filling any fuel in. So some confusion on his part, I suppose, in terms of the regulations there, I think. The regulations you mentioned about having to put fuel in on the stop.
Yeah. It looks like his interpretation was to obviously come in and make a pit stop, as in stop the car and go again. But the regulation did state it had to be for fuel, so you had to put a minimum amount in. It looks like a lot of the other drivers did comply with that regulation as well, and when including Reed, who came in, they both went in at the same time, and it was obvious. It was so evident that Brunner hadn't taken fuel compared to Reed. Yeah,
and that gave him like a 5-second gap to Reed as well. Or to Phil, I guess we could call it Phil because he's our teammate. And he was uncatchable from that point really, and he crossed the line first, but the post-race penalty that he then went on to get because of that failure to fill fuel ended up dropping him back down to 2nd behind Phil. So Phil got his first win of the Pro Mazda League. Yeah, hard to say whether he would have been able to hold on from Brunner if the pit stops had gone normally.
We'll never know.
We'll never know, but still, I would say a deserved win, based on just how good his pace was throughout the whole. I should say weekend, but it's not really a weekend, is it? Just during the whole day, just including practice and everything.
I think the other battle that was a highlight was Van Dorn and Jarvis going at it. It was
absolutely amazing battle that.
Yeah,
I think it was the battle of 7th, was it?
6th, I think it was. Oh no, it was 7th. Yeah.
7th, yeah. Yeah, I actually got to know there. Lap 23 is when they went side by side for literally absolute ages. Like the whole second half of the lap, they were just just back and forth.
Yeah,
it was great to watch, and they kept on their battle until the end, pretty much. I think it was pretty much a photo finish between them, wasn't it?
Yep.
And Van Dorn just got on top. I'm trying to read the gap here.
It was what, 7,000?
Yeah, something like that.
It looks like. So yeah, that was certainly the closest battle on track. Obviously, the lead battle spoiled by that penalty a little bit, but we'll never know how that would really turn out if things were on a level playing field.
And finally, worth noting that Govan Kini ended up on the podium for his first time ever. Yeah, that's it for COTA. Let's move on to Monza, which is another massively action-packed race, and the final one that we do have a video of already. Yeah, Justin Brunner though back on top in terms of pace for this one. Took pole again for the second time in the season. Van Dorn in second, quite surprisingly, and Fluke third, Merck fourth, and Troggy fifth. Excuse me for laughing, but you don't usually see him up that high in qualifying, so quite impressed by that. And you back down in seventh again. What's going on there?
I was only 3 tenths off pole. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I was only
the gaps are quite close, aren't they?
I was only a tenth off the front row as well, so it was just so close. I mean, qualifying was just a huge draft fest. I just remember there was just cars. Obviously, that's where the teams really come into play, and that's in qualifying. You really had a bit of a disadvantage if you didn't have a partner, really. So that kind of escalates Brunner's achievement even higher, I think, considering he's got no teammate and he's kind of has to latch on to other people really and rely that they're gonna provide him with a suitable draft. And
so Phil did not want to give you a draft then.
I think I gave him draft actually. But it's not about the team here.
Okay. So what happened this race then? I guess first of all, let's get my mistake over with, because obviously, due to some blinking issues with my desktop that I usually race on, I had to drive this race on my laptop and ended up not having my clutch properly assigned. As a result, I jumped the start.
When that happens.
Yeah, because obviously the start procedure is stick your clutch down, get the throttle on. So that's what I did, but since the clutch wasn't engaging, the throttle went on and just moved my car forward. That obviously gave me a penalty, and I had to take a drive through and a stop-go like 18 seconds after the first lap. So again, 3 out of 4 races at the start of the season for me, which hasn't really gone to plan. But enough about me. Let's talk about your start, Kerry.
4 out of 4 races where it was looking like it was going to go bad for me, really. So Turn 1 got clipped. I can't remember who it was by, and I was so lucky not to collect anyone else, so I was sent straight to the back at Turn 1. So a great start. Actually, I think it was Trowbridge. I think.
Was it really?
That I made contact with. So lucky not to obviously wipe him out. Lucky not to have much damage either. So I was just able to carry on, albeit at the back of the field. So certainly one thing to keep an eye on there was my progress through the field.
In the first few laps, just mentioning a few points that I've noted. Obviously, you had the Team Tortoise self-destruct that was going on, because they both crashed after a few corners. I think it was Fredrik Johansson who had got a little bit of suspension damage or something like that through Turn 1. Didn't quite have a stable car going down the next straight, and somehow managed to spin it on the straight, which I found quite interesting. And that almost wiped me out actually as well, because I was obviously at the back of the field at that point and kind of came through as he was spinning off the track. He was so close to hitting his car. And I think his teammate Evan Imre got caught out by that as well and ended up crashing on the next corner.
I just remember going through there and there was just like shells, broken shell everywhere. It was just accidents everywhere. So yeah, there was a couple of places gained already. Obviously unfortunate for the Team Tortoise guys. I know Sal Talamaki got involved in unfortunate stuff as well.
Didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, it was quite early on as well. And of course, at the end of lap 1, we had Robinson trying to be a hero against Van den Broek.
Yeah. Robinson hitting Van Broek there and getting penalised as well at the end of the race with a 20-second penalty, which is worth pointing out. Just lots of stuff going on. There was an incident as well that I just seem to remember at the Scari where just loads of people crashed. I think it was Mittner and White or something who were involved. They got taken out by some some kind of banter happening at the Sky.
we had a lot of retirements in the early stages while people were jostling for position. But that's just the nature of Monza, really. There was always different passes going on, and different closing speeds and stuff, different downforce levels that cars were running, impacting on that as well. Yeah, that was a huge shame. It took out a lot of cars, but yeah, it was plain sailing for Brunner up at the front.
Yeah, plain sailing for him, because he was kind of getting away, just running away with it out in front. There wasn't actually a battle for the lead for the whole race, I don't think. He ended up with a, just looking, 14-point margin to P2. But it did settle down, though, in terms of battling. Well, it didn't settle down in terms of battling, it settled down in terms of incidents after the first few laps. But you obviously had quite a bit of battling on your drive back through the field. So where did you end up then in the end?
Well, I made a couple passes through the field. I think battles of note were with Robert Plumley. Certainly was always great to race against Plumley, because he'll give it 110% no matter who he's up against. If he's getting lapped or not, he'll go for it. So
yeah, he may not always have the ultimate pace, but he always gives it his absolute best in battles, doesn't he? I
think the key moment for my race was me catching up with the 4-car train ahead of Spears, Trowbridge, Reed, and I think it was Morris, possibly, and catching up to them. I had to make a decision whether to make the pit stop early and try and jump them, or get involved in their scrapping, and I elected the pit quite early and came out ahead of pretty much all of them. Actually, I came out alongside Spears.
Well, it's my strategy, to be honest.
Got past Spears, and then Spears decided, let's drag each other forward and try and go up towards Chantal.
Spears running surprisingly high in that race. That's good for him.
And Chantal also doing a great job, and we were catching them up on the podium, and then obviously we got involved with Chantal, and I ended up third somehow, although closely followed by Chantal and Spears. I think Spears' tactic was to try and sneak the podium if he could by using me to get further up the field, but didn't quite work out, which fortunate for me. But still, personal best results there for Chantal and Spears, and great to finally get the podium for myself as well, to finally kick my season off.
Yeah, surely one of the comeback drives of the season after having been last after turn 1, I must say, quite impressive. So, I don't think there's too much more of note in that race, really. I mean, there was just battles going on all over the place, but it would be way too much to kind of mention everything. Righty then, round 5 at Bathurst. Oh god, it's a scary place. It's a scary place. I really dreaded Bathurst when we went into it, because again, it's a track well, at least in iRacing, it's a track I hadn't driven before, and it is really tricky, especially the middle bit.
Certainly not a car built for the Star Mazda, that's for sure. With so many crests and undulations and bumps and stuff, and it's not suitable for a single seater, really.
Yeah. So much
in all
up
honesty.
And down in that middle bit, and the walls are so close, so a tiny mistake just has your race ruined, basically. Which is what makes it such a hard track to get a proper clean race on.
I think that was reflected in qualifying as well. We had pole sitter Mark Jarvis with a great lap of 2:04.8, which was one of the fastest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Across the whole week, not just in this league, but in the whole Star Mazda week. So
and much larger gaps between people than usual, because of the difficulty of the track as well.
Yeah, so the field spread was, I think 21st was some 6 seconds off the pace, which is amazing to think, but with a 2-minute lap and just the way Bathurst is totally believable as well.
Thing is, I was a second and a half off, I think I qualified 10th, and I was really happy with that lap. That was like a super good lap for me. So it just says a lot of how good Jarvis' lap was.
Yeah, I mean, I was 8 tenths off and Phil Reed was a full second off. We were in 5th and 6th, so it really was just a crushing performance. I think Goband done a great job. He was only 3 tenths off. Patrick White was in 3rd, so clearly still the usual suspects up there, as you would expect.
Brenner 4th as well.
Yeah.
So in terms of the start, I seem to remember there was the top group, including you and Phil, were quite close at the start, but Phil passed you quite early, didn't he?
Reed, he mugged me running outside the turn 1, actually. I think we were getting tripped up behind Govand, having these little moments at turn 1. I think he was having, so that meant that I was cautious. Didn't even notice he was on my right, this guy. So, and he went straight around the outside. Job done.
He doesn't care.
But we were side by side still. I think Govan was trying to cover both of us off. He was kind of weaving in different places there, trying to cut us off, which he done quite well. But I lost the position to Reed, so I was down to what, 6th, I think. I think Van den Broek was pretty close as well, looking to get past. But there's no way. There's no way you can move past anyone at all after the start.
And the story of the race was people crashing, wasn't it, really? Yeah. That's what happens at Bathurst, usually. Yep. The first thing that happened was towards the end of lap 1, like the corner onto the long back straight, when Fluke and Baxter both lost control and kind of ended up as a bit of a roadblock for everyone going past. I nearly got caught up with that as well. So they dropped towards the back, and got a list here actually of people who crashed in the race, and the first of whom you know quite well.
Yeah, that would be me again. So didn't take long to crash. Went into, was going back down the hill again, bottomed out as you would expect from a single seater going through a corner of that type, and it just spat me out into the wall. So lucky not to collect Van den Broek, who avoided me quite. Oh, I tried to avoid him as well, so got away with that. But then I think a corner later, I think White went off as well. It wasn't just me suffering going down that hill. So already 2 of the top 6 had gone already. Really.
I can't remember what lap that was. How many laps?
2, I think. Lap 2.
Only 2 laps. Jesus.
Yeah. So that lasted quite well, but it really was just a war of attrition, really. So I was just
taking no prisoners. So going through the rest of my list, you have Vittorio crashing. You got Keeney, who's obviously qualified 2nd. He crashed as well at some point. You got Pete Newman crashing. You got Trowbridge crashing. You got Timu Valkjärvi crashing. You got Michael Mittner crashing. And right towards the end, you got Jamie Fluke crashing again as well, although he did finish within 90% of the race, so he did score some points. So just a lot of flips and crashes going on with that, especially through that downhill section, which just took so many victims.
I think Mark Jarvis suffered as well, the pole sitter.
He did,
he must have had some kind of incident because he just dropped so much speed at the end, and I think his approach of trying to go fast versus someone like Phil Reed, who was taking it easy, going conservative, you could see the difference. Phil Reed ended up a good 25 seconds clear in the end because Jarvis had damage and was kind of crawling about with that.
Jarvis was obviously leading at the start. He built up a reasonable gap, I think, but Brunner, even before his damage though, Brunner passed him, I think, on lap 9. So fair enough, Brunner had the pace there. But so Jarvis must have tapped the wall somewhere because he obviously got caught by, I think he got caught by Van den Broek as well, who then also went on to have an incident of his own, and then got caught by me and Leister towards the end of the race. And I guess me and Leister were just running the calm race, and you know what that gets you at Bathurst? It gets you 4th and 5th. just running a calm race without crashing into the walls. That's a good tactic, I think. That's just all I aim for, really.
Yeah, Justin Brunner, meanwhile, took the win, though. Yeah. Even though Phil Reed took the carb approach, he finished a good 12 seconds off Brunner. So Brunner kind of had that, a balance of the 2 approaches that Reed and Jarvis had. So that was Brunner's 2nd win of the season, and he really was on the march at this point of the season. Right,
so done with Bathurst. Happily to say, I guess, kind of happy, even though I finished P5. And round 6 at Motegi, which is a track that I find quite good, to be honest. And it did provide some good action as well. Brunner back on pole for that one, ahead of Mark Jarvis, and those 2 ended up being the pace setters, really. It was between those 2 for the win, wasn't it, really, for the whole race. Yep. They ended up pulling out a gap right from the start. Had a close battle, although I don't think there was too much passing. If I remember correctly, Brunner stayed in the lead for actually the whole duration of the race, even though Jarvis was right behind him constantly and having some attempts at passing.
I think downforce levels played their role, though. Certainly for me, anyway. I think I ran a bit too much low downforce that I couldn't really keep up with those 2 in front. Yeah. But also Jarvis running pretty high downforce didn't really have much of an opportunity to get past Brunner. I think. Yeah, exactly. Although the gap was only 3 tenths by race end, which suggests that he may have had a chance.
He was. The thing is, I do have some a little list there. Obviously, he had a few moments or attempts, I should say, I tried to get past. He got actually quite close, if I remember correctly, of getting past him in the pit stops. Even though the pit had the same lap, they were really close together coming out of the pit exit. And then lap 25 was, I believe, actually the first time they properly went into, I guess, combat, when Jarvis had some proper moves, like trying to pass. But Brenner really, really defended well, from what I remember, and held on to the lead. And they got close a couple more times as well. But yeah, Jarvis just couldn't make it stick, and Brenner, as you said, held on for a 3/10 win in the end.
I think it was just good racing respect between them, though. I think Jarvis and Brenner have good respect for each other. They knew what both were each capable of, so I don't think Jarvis wanted to do anything, didn't want to commit to a move that could have taken both of them out.
Someone less experienced might have decided to go for a desperate move after being stuck behind someone for that long. But Jarvis obviously didn't, and ended up with 1-2 for them. And the other notable battle going on in that race was, of course, the Battle of Third, where you were majorly involved. I think at the start it was kind of a 5 or 6 way scrap for a while, because there was a bit of train from you and Phil down. But really, it was a battle between you and Phil for that podium position, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a couple of passes between us in the early stages. I think I don't think I had the pace really. Like I said, downforce levels were probably just I had a little bit more straight line speed, I think, which worked to hold off Phil on the straights. It's just that when we actually got through to the corners, I didn't really have much of a response. So he made a move out of the last corner in a couple of laps into the race, and then kind of just held that really. Which I didn't mind. He allowed us to pull away. He felt he had time in his pocket, so he managed to pull away. And it was kind of a team effort, really, I think. I don't think I really attacked that hard, really, throughout the race, when I probably could have if I wanted the position. But from a team effort, I think it was just to get points on the board, considering I'd spent 4 of the first 5 races in the wall at some stage.
Yeah, that's about it for that race, really. I don't think there was probably quite a bit of battling going on in the midfield, but I just can't remember it.
From a championship point of view, Motegi was an important race for some drivers there.
Yeah.